Today in this particular lecture, we are going to discuss what are the most important component of the money market. There are different players in the money market. The most important player in the money market is the central bank. Without this central bank, the money market is incomplete. Without this particular central bank, the money market is not going to be resilient. Without this particular money market, the money market may not be functioning fully well. So, understanding this particular central bank, understanding its operations, actually helps in understanding the money market itself, understanding the impact that the money market is going to have and the business units will have in the long run. The actions of the central bank will impact the money market, and indirectly it impacts the corporates. Any action by the central bank will directly impact the money market and indirectly impacts the corporates. So it is a chain wherein first it impacts the money market, then it impacts various other entities in the economy. So it is very important for us to understand the activities of the central bank and the policies of the central bank, the methods with which it tries to control the credit in the economy. So let us first of all understand the various functions of any central bank. When it comes to India, it is the Reserve Bank of India which acts as a monetary authority. It is the Central Bank of India which acts as a monetary authority and which controls the credit in our economy. Understanding the central bank in general, or understanding the Reserve Bank of India functions in general, will help you in the same way to understand the policy dictates of any central bank. Understanding this particular dictates, understanding the specific dictates of any central bank will give a lot of understanding about how you are going to be impacted and how you should act in a particular scenario wherein a particular central bank has imposed certain restrictions on you or impacted the money market in general. The central banks, that is the Reserve Bank of India, has been established in 1934. Over a period of time after the independence, this particular central bank has been nationalized and it is acting as a monetary authority in India. In specific, the central bank is doing a lot in controlling the economy in general and in particular impacting the credit supply in the economy. If you see the main functions of the Reserve Bank of India, they can be divided into various functions. The most important function is the Central Bank of India, or the RBI in particular, acts as an issuer of currency. What do you mean by issuer of currency? The Reserve Bank of India has been bestowed with the right to issue the currency notes in India. It is having a sole right to issue banking notes and the coins, banking notes and rupee notes and the small coins in India of various denominations. This is done on behalf of Government of India. This is the most important function, because the size of the currency in circulation depends upon how much the central bank releases into the market. And the second most important function is the central bank acts as a bankers to the government. It is most important function because the government itself cannot act for making payments or receiving the payments from the various corporate entities and also other individuals. So it acts as a banker to the government and both central and state in managing their currencies, their money. Apart from these particular things, the government of this Reserve Bank of India or the central bank in India helps these particular governments in mobilizing the funds for their use on behalf of the Central Bank of India. It issues treasury bills. It mobilizes funds through the various kinds of bonds whenever the central bank needs. This particular Reserve Bank of India also helps in state governments to mobilize the funds through various bonds. So it acts as a banker to the government. In the exigent cases, in the cases wherein there is a shortfall of money with the government, it lends money to the government. It gives money for the short term. It gives money for the long term. So this Reserve Bank of India or the central bank helps as a bankers to the government. It comes to the rescue of the government whenever the government needs it. Apart from this particular thing, the Reserve Bank of India also acts as a bankers to the bank. What do you mean by bankers to the bank actually? It acts as the head of the banker, various banks. It acts as a lender of last resort to the various commercial banks which are existing in India. What do you mean by lender of last resort? Whenever there is a shortfall of money with a particular bank, these banks will go to the Reserve Bank of India for help, for getting funds for a short notice. So these bankers are going to have a lot of help whenever there is a vibrant central bank, a strong central bank. Apart from this particular thing, the Reserve Bank of India also acts as the manager of foreign exchange. It acts as a custodian for foreign exchange reserves. On behalf of the Government of India, it acts as a custodian for all the foreign exchanges, foreign currencies which it receives. So it is not the individual, no individual in the country is allowed to keep the foreign exchange with themselves. So whenever you are going to get foreign currency, it has to be deposited it has to be surrendered to a particular commercial bank or some other individual, and ultimately it will go to the coffers of the Reserve Bank of India. Apart from this particular thing, it acts as the control of credit. This is the most important function of all. The size of currency in the economy, the size of credit in the economy depends upon the actions of the central bank. They will be knowing how much that is needed, how much supply of money is needed for the economy. So according to the needs of the economy, the money, they will pump more and more money into the economy. The money supply in the economy is regulated by the central bank. Regulated by the central bank. They will try to neutralize the effects of the currency itself, neutralize the effects of credit. The size of credit in the economy, the size of money in the economy should not have adverse impact on the prices, adverse impact on the employment, adverse impact on the growth. It should have a positive impact on the growth. The money itself should not cause a price rise. So the central bank acts as a control of credit to see that the money available in the economy or the credit available in the economy helps the growth of the economy. So to do this, actually, they involve or they come out with the various methods of credit control. Each and every central bank comes out with the different methods of controls, methods of credit controls, depending upon the needs of a particular day, particular moment. These particular controls in general can be divided into two categories. The credit controls can be divided into two categories. Some are considered to be quantitative credit controls or general credit controls. The other category of credit controls are considered to be as selective credit controls. So you have two different controls. One is quantitative credit controls and other one is called qualitative credit controls or selective credit controls. What are these particular, let us understand what this particular quantitative credit controls, what are the different types of quantitative credit controls first before we go to the selective credit controls or qualitative credit controls. Under the quantitative credit controls, you have three major methods of credit control. One is called bank rate policy, other one is called open market operations, the third one is called variation in reserve ratio. What is this particular bank rate policy? Bank rate. The bank rate is a rate at which the central bank rediscounts the bills of a commercial bank. It is the rate at which it rediscounts the bills of commercial banks. That is, it is also a rate at which it lends to the banker whenever the other bank or the other commercial banks wants certain loan. So it is a rate or a rate at which commercial bank gets funds from the central bank. The central banks can say, I'll be giving at 5% or 6% or 7%. Depending upon the environment, depending upon the requirements of the economy, depends upon the credit supply in the economy, the bank rate is changed from time to time. bank rate is changed from time to time. If it wants to tighten the credit in the economy, it will raise the bank rate. If it wants to increase the money supply in the economy, it will try to reduce the bank rate. The bank rate is considered to be most potent and most effective method of credit control. For example, if the inflation is there, inflation is going up. If the prices in the economy prices are going up, why the prices will go up? When we study about the inflation and causes for inflation, you will be understanding what is the reason for the price rise. Prices in the economy in general will go up due to two different things. One is there might be a short supply of commodities in general. It is because of the supply in the economy, the prices might be going up, the demand might be more than the supply, or though the supply is good, because of the increased supply of money in the economy, there might be more demand for the products and the services in the economy. That is the most dangerous actually. That is, more and more money is running after the commodities. When such thing is going to happen, it will cause an inflationary effect in the economy and the prices will be starting moving up. In such circumstances actually, the central bank will increase the bank rate. When the bank rate is going to be increased automatically, the interest at which the money moves from the central bank to the commercial banks will go up. When the bank rate moves up, other interest rates in the economy also move up. So when the interest rates move up in the economy, the businessmen will not be interested in taking more loans and from the commercial banks. So they try to reduce, and apart from this particular thing, the consumption rate also will come down. If a consumer earlier gets the loan for 13%, now he gets it for 15%, he will try to reduce his consumption. So because of that, actually the demand for the various commodities are going to come down. Because of that, the inflationary tendencies in the economy is going to come down. So this reverse is also possible, wherein the bank rate is lowered whenever the inflation rates whenever the economy is moving towards recessionary tendencies. So this is one of the best technique, usually the most important technique, which usually any central bank is going to use quite often for making some adjustments in the credit economy. The second most important activity or most important quantitative method of credit control is what is called open market operation. This is also called OMOs nowadays. OMOs are nothing but open market operations. The OMO is nothing but a mechanism wherein the central bank directly goes into the market and buys various securities from the market, or directly goes into the market and try to sell the various securities into the market. That is, it is a deliberate mechanism wherein the central bank directly goes and buys and sells various securities in the open market. And what happens here? When a central bank buys the securities from the open market. Buys the securities from the open market means it is using its funds to buy the various securities in the market which is already available. For example, the treasury bills, they might be going and buying various treasury bills existing with the various commercial banks. In this particular scenario, the money is moving from central bank to the commercial bank, and commercial banks in turn into the money market. In the reverse direction, when it sells the securities to the various individuals in the various entities in the money market, what is happening? When it sells, money moves from the individuals to the central bank. So in this way, it will try to reduce or increase the money supply in the economy. This is the second method. The third method is what is called reserve ratio requirements. It will try to change the various reserve ratios. What is a reserve ratio? Any commercial bank anywhere in the world actually has mandated to have certain reserves in the form of liquid cash, in the form of a specific securities. The reason is that any commercial bank, wherever they are, actually are dealing with individuals. They are dealing with the money which is given by the individuals. So to safeguard the interest of this particular general public, actually, most of the central bank mandates the commercial banks to keep certain reserves. In India, every commercial bank has to maintain what is called CRR and SLR. Cash reserve ratio, one, that is CRR, and other one is called statutory liquidity ratio, which is called SLR. So they have to maintain CRR and SLR. CRR at the present moment of time is around 3% and SLR at this particular moment is around 18%. That is, a CRR is nothing but the cash reserve ratio, wherein depending upon the banker's net demand and time liabilities, a specific percentage of cash has to be kept with central bank. That means, and one more thing you have to understand here, what is the size of 1%? A 1% of the cash reserve ratios will be equivalent to roughly 1,37,000 crores. Supposing that if the cash reserve ratio changes from 3% to 4%, that means these banks have to keep more and more funds with the central bank. Then what happens? 1% change will remove roughly 1,37,000 crores from the economy. And if they reduce the cash reserve ratio to the extent of 1%, it removes equivalent to 1,37,000 crores. Of course, this is not 1,37,000 crores is not be the same. It all depends upon the net demand and time liabilities of a commercial bank. So, based upon the size of the deposit which they have, a certain amount of money has to be kept aside which they cannot lend to the public in general. Definitely affects the size of the credit in the economy. So usually the central bank always goes on changing this particular cash reserve ratio depending upon the policy they wanted to implement on a day-to-day basis. And the second one is what is called statutory reserve ratio. What is this particular ratio which we are calling as statutory liquidity ratio? Is the liquid assets to the net demand and time liabilities. It is the ratio between the liquid assets to the net demand and the time liabilities of any banker. So this particular, according to this particular SLR, this particular banks have to keep, any commercial bank which is there in India has to keep certain liquid assets with itself. That means that these particular assets have to be kept with them. That is, the Reserve Bank of India specifies the type of assets they need to buy and keep it with themselves, which are considered to be liquid in nature. They may say that you have to buy certain kind of securities only, certain kind of dated paper only. You have to keep certain funds in the form of treasury bill only, certain amount only in certain specific rated securities only. So over a period of time, actually the Reserve Bank of India may say that say something about the kind of assets the commercial banks are going to have in this particular basket, which might be equivalent to 18%. So if they change from 18% to 19%, the amount of money which goes into the money market comes down. Whenever they reduce the SLR, the money which goes into the money market improves or goes up. So the size of the reserve ratios definitely affects the money supply in the economy. Apart from this particular three things, actually, there is another thing which has come up recently. That is what is called liquidity adjustment facility. Liquidity adjustment facilities was introduced in 2000, and it is a facility wherein Reserve Bank of India provided the commercial bank to avail liquidity in case of need, and also to park certain funds with the Reserve Bank of India on an overnight basis to get certain return. So this is what is called liquidity adjustment facility. These are some of the important quantitative methods usually any central bank adapts in controlling the size of the credit. But sometimes it is not the size of the credit which is important, but the quality of the credit that need to be controlled. In the case of when you are applying, whenever a central bank or whenever a Reserve Bank of India applies the quantitative credit control, it will affect each and every individual. It will affect each and every sector in the economy, because either this supply of money goes up or supply of money comes down. But there might be cases or requirements wherein we need to specifically control a particular sector, but we might be interested in controlling a particular sector activities, the maladies which are prevailing in a particular sector. We might also be interested in specifically giving some thrust to a particular segment or which are working in a particular business or delivering particular services. A sector, it might be specific to a particular sector. For example, because of this particular COVID-19, there are certain sectors which are affected. Not each and every sector has been affected. Everybody has been affected. But certain sectors of the economy were affected in a much higher manner. The impact is so large that unless until these particular industries are not given timely help, might impact their existence itself, not the performance. They might not exist in the future. So we might be interested in giving specific incentive to that particular sector. In the other side, there might be cases wherein there might be a price rise in a particular sector, price rise due to some individuals in a particular sector. We wanted to control that particular sector. For example, suddenly the tea prices might be going up, wheat prices might be going up, rice prices might be going up or coming down. We wanted to see that the prices goes up or comes down in that particular sector. That particular commodity prices are not considered to be genuine. So we wanted to support the prices, or we wanted to lessen the prices, reduce the prices, and the prices are being pegged up by some hoarders. So we wanted to have a control, and these particular credit controls which we have seen may not be impacting them, but they will impact every business. So the selective controls are going to be adapted by the various central banks. The ceiling on credit. What do you mean by this particular ceiling of credit? Ceiling on credit is a technique wherein the Reserve Bank of India specifies the limit with regard to the credit that a particular banker gives to a particular sector. That is, it specifies the level of credit that goes to a particular sector itself. This is what's called ceiling on credit. It's a ceiling on credit is nothing but level of credit which will be placed on a specific banker. That is, supposing that you are having 100 rupees, how much money has to go to sugar industry? It specifies it. It changes over a period of time. Earlier, say 20% used to go to the sugar industry. Now they will say only 15% should go to this sugar industry. What happens? The persons who are holding the sugar will automatically sell in the market when they don't get the credit. So supposing that you are giving working capital, you are giving credit on the sugar itself to a wholesaler, for example, to buy the sugar, raw sugar. If you are giving 20 rupees, he will buy 20 rupees worth sugar. If you are restricting yourself to 15% credit, that means you are reducing 5 rupees from that fellow, which is moving towards that particular individual. Then his capacity to buy more and more sugar will come down. Thereby, whenever the central bank reduces the level of credit that can go into that particular sector, the commercial banks will ask the holders or the wholesaler to return the money which has already gone into that particular individuals. Then automatically these particular people who are holding stocks will go to the money market, go to their market and sell the sugar out and give that particular money back to the banker. In this particular process, what is happening is the sugar which is hoarded by the wholesaler will come into the money market and the price of the sugar will automatically falls down. So this is one mechanism which will be used to reduce prices in a particular sector. There is another mechanism which is called the margin requirements. Usually any loan is made available by a banker to his customer on the basis of a particular collateral. If your asset is worth 100 rupees, you may get 70% of that particular 70% on the asset value. For example, you are having 50,000 worth or say 1 lakh rupees worth wheat, and on wheat, if the central bank says that you can give 80% of the credit area, you are giving 80,000 rupees to that particular individual. What these individuals do? They buy 1 lakh worth wheat or rice, then pledge this particular goods with a banker and take 80,000, again will go to the market and buy 80,000 worth goods and keep it to see that the prices will go up in the market. They wanted to take advantage of the market forces. If more and more people are going to buy wheat, what happens? Through borrowing funds from the banker, the prices in the open market will go up for the wheat. So in such circumstances, what the central banks will do is that they will raise the margin requirements. That means they'll say now to the bankers that you can lend only up to 70%. You can lend up to 50%. That means if you are going to have 1 lakh worth goods, the amount of credit you are going to get is only going to be 50,000. Because of that, the amount of hoarding will come down. So this is another beautiful mechanism through which the central banks can act to control the credit in the economy, control the price rise in a particular sector. Then there are certain things called discretionary interest rates mechanism. In this particular case, what usually central banks does is that based upon the priority, they may say that you have to lend a certain percentage of funds only to this particular sector. You have to lend certain amount to this particular sectors of the economy at a concessional rate only. That means that, for example, if they wanted to develop fisheries, they may say that you have to give more and more loans to that particular sector. Anybody who wanted to have a processing unit relating to fishing should be given certain incentive wherein you are going to give a particular percentage of loans only to this particular people at a particular concession rate. They may say that you have to, in this particular quarter, you have to give more and more loans only to the fishing sector at a particular concessional rate of interest only. This is what is called discretionary interest rate mechanism. Apart from these particular things, there is another mechanism which central bank uses, which is called directives. RBI over a period of time actually directs the various banks to do certain things and not to do certain things. It will dictate. The directives are the mechanism through which it dictates the terms to the various commercial banks, wherein they say that you should not lend to that particular sector. They might say that that particular individual should not get any further loan also. That particular corporate should not get any loan further also. So these are the various directives. And directives are going to be given only when the technique of moral suasion doesn't work. The moral suasion is another technique wherein it tries to, the Reserve Bank of India or any central bank India tries to guide the commercial banks to exercise control over the credit. It gives a general advice to the commercial banks not to go for certain loans, not to go in for a certain risky investments, certain risky loans, and these are not mandatory, but the certain commercial banks may accept the terms and conditions or of this particular dictates or suggestions, but some may not. So they might go in for what is called directives. So we have seen two different kinds of controls. Some controls are direct in nature, which are called quantitative credit controls. They are direct in nature because it affects each and every economy. They are called general credit controls or quantitative credit controls. The other kind of controls are called selective credit controls, which are going to be brought into effect or will affect only a certain sector of the economy. Both are important, and over a period of time, many selective controls have come in to help the various central banks in correcting the money supply in the economy or the credit supply in the economy. Thank you.